can't let your ego, say, well, but I wanted to make this work. I wanted to make this person love me. And I didn't want to be divorced a second time. What does this look like? And, oh, I'm getting married a third time or whatever. And you have to let all that ego go because, you can't bring that into the new relationship. You can't bring that ego or that fear of what that means about you into the new relationship.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Fascinating Womanhood channel, where we talk about all things that have to do with femininity and building strong, long-lasting, loving relationships. I am Cherry Lynn, and I am so excited to be here with my mom, Dixie Andelin Forsyth. Hi.
Hi.
And my sister is our special guest today, Gina Marie. Hi.
Hi.
All we need is two more of the other two daughters, and we got the full house.
We're all here, yeah. But this is exciting to have Gina here to have a little bit more of an intimate discussion. We want to talk about a really important subject. We've actually had this asked so many times, and we really just haven't covered it because we haven't felt like we've had a guest that would cover it. And this is a tough subject. We're talking about the difference between what a healthy relationship looks like and what an unhealthy relationship looks like. Now, before we get into it, I do want to say, Fascinating Womanhood, we never, ever bash men. When we're talking a little bit about unhealthy relationships, we're probably going to be a little bit more on the interpretive and vague side because we don't want to bash anyone. It's just not what we believe in. Why do we think that women who are in unhealthy relationships tend to shy away from fascinating womanhood? We've been hearing this a lot lately, women that kind of don't like fascinating womanhood because they themselves kind of feel like they just haven't had a lot of great relationships. Or Gina, do you feel like that is something that has happened to you?
Absolutely, because I'm guilty of having said it doesn't work for me, but I think the problem is not that it doesn't work, but that it is being thought of as a cure for a bad relationship, where this is something I believe that enhances a good relationship. It doesn't make a bad relationship good. You can't take any guy off the street and say, I'm going to apply these principles and we're going to have a great relationship because of it, because that's just not how things work.
And I think what you mean by that, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that you have to start with two people who want it to work, who are basically emotionally healthy, instead of, in other words, like you said, some guy off the street who might have all kinds of addictions, a criminal or whatever, and you can't take any person and make that relationship.
You have to have someone who wants the same type of relationship. And I'll talk about my first marriage. I've been married twice. My first marriage was to a very, very good person. He is a very good person. He's a wonderful father to our son, and he's a good man. But we did not want the same kind of relationship. And so that was very frustrating to me. And I got married very young. We hadn't known each other very long. I just assumed that he would want the same. I assumed he wanted to have a best friend for a wife. I assumed that he was wanting to share his life with me as much as I wanted to share my life with him. And that's just wasn't the case. He's a great guy, but we just didn't want the same things. And that was something I should have probably figured out before. We grew up in a family with men who were good communicators and who were, you and Dad, Mom, you guys have been best friends for 50 years, and you guys do everything together. And that's kind of what I was looking for, but I hadn't realized that I probably should have figured that out before I got married too.
Well, and I've had some women who have said to me that they didn't like fascinating womanhood because they weren't in a relationship and they thought maybe that they were failing or something. And that really doesn't have anything to do with it because they haven't found a good guy yet. It really does not mean. I use the example of Audrey Hepburn. All of her co-stars loved her. Her directors loved her. Unfortunately, she didn't have great taste in husbands. She got divorced, I think, twice. Never did have a successful marriage. Maybe she wasn't attracted to great guys. I don't know. But it didn't mean that she was not a wonderful, feminine, fascinating person.
So, Gina, growing up, how did you feel about fascinating womanhood? versus how you feel about it now?
It was something I don't think that we were necessarily consciously studying or being taught even. I think we just observed and we watched. The things that I watched in mom and dad's relationship are things that I just sort of started doing because it seemed to work. And so, you do that. You pick up things and you say, I like that. One of my favorite things that mom taught us when we were, I want to say I was 14 or 15 at the time. And something that I really, I listened to it then and I was like, that's a great idea. But then now as an adult, I go, oh my goodness, this really works.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I do.
Let me get to it. I'm building the suspense. No, what you told me, Mom, you told me something that Grandma told you, which was to write down a list of qualities that you wanted in a man.
Yeah.
Write down everything that you were looking for, everything that you thought was admirable, desirable, all that things. But then turn that paper around and write down what that guy would want in a woman.
And deserve. Yeah.
And deserve in a woman. And keep that list. Look at that list. And, as a young girl, I'm going, yeah, that's a great idea. But then I didn't really take it to heart until later on. Now it's kind of like, yeah, of course you need to be the person that would be wanted by the person that you want.
Well, not just that, you'll be attracted more to him if you're more fit, if you fit more with what that person is like.
Well, and you have, and I think ultimately working on yourself and knowing who you are is incredibly vital. I don't think I knew I know I didn't know who I was when I married my first husband. I was kind of a mess. I've had to really kind of understand myself, get over my own insecurities, my own self-esteem issues, and all these other things, and figure out where my worth was, because I was depending on other people to give me my worth. And that's not how it works. You have to figure out your own. If you figure out your own, nothing anyone does can really hurt you.
So Gina, I'm interested here. So what are some of the things you would say define unhealthy relationship now that you've lived a little longer? Obviously not as long as me. But.
For me, an unhealthy relationship was one where I was unable to express my feelings. Often if my feelings were hurt in some way, I had to be extremely careful how I worded anything. Because if I worded it wrong, I was in trouble.
Well, did you find sometimes that even if you didn't think you worded it wrong?
Yeah. Well, no, I would spend hours trying to figure out how to word things, and it still was wrong. It was still wrong. I still ended up, after hours and hours, I would end up apologizing because I would be like, what happened? I thought I was the one whose feelings got hurt. And in contrast, yesterday, for instance, this is actually something that actually happened yesterday. My fiance, Andy, hurt my feelings, very unintentionally, but, still it hurt my feelings. And I brought it up and I was like, he goes, did that hurt your feelings? I said, yeah, it kind of did. And he goes, why? And I kind of explained it. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, I know you didn't mean it. It just kind of hurt my feelings. And then there was this pause and I go, I'm kind of sensitive, huh? And he goes, yeah. And that was the end of it. He apologized. I felt better because I had been able to express that it hurt. And he apologized but we both kind of playfully acknowledged that I'm a little sensitive and that's okay. He just kind of goes, yeah. And I said, thank you for letting me express my feelings and share with you that my feelings were hurt without being upset. And he goes, well, I love you. And he kind of seemed like, why are you even thanking me? But it means a lot.
Another thing, I obviously have not had an unhealthy relationship, but I have had when I was a kid with a family member. The thing that I would say, or I remember most about, is I kept trying everything I could to get them to approve of me and to like me, and nothing ever worked. Years and years and years, nothing ever worked until finally got old enough. I realized, they're never going to, and I cannot make them.
Yeah, and there's another element of unpredictability with them. You never know who's going to walk through the door, and you never know if they're going to be upset with you or happy with you that day. And so it's a constant state of anxiety. And when they're away, you're worried, like, what are they doing? If you haven't heard from them for a while, you're like, are they upset? Are they angry about something? And then I would rack my brain trying to figure out what I did wrong, because usually it was something that I didn't even know I had done wrong.
So there's no security, emotional security.
I know for me, I was in a really unhealthy one before I married my husband. I know this is really small and simple, but I think a lot of the ladies out there might relate to this. I knew I was in a really unhealthy relationship with him when I caught myself constantly crying, almost to the point of every day, even if it was just for a couple minutes. I was like, I cry almost every day. Yeah. And it kind of became normal for about 2 years that I was
thanks for bringing that up, because
every single day.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy. And I mean, you might go through spouts of time where you're crying because, maybe you're going through a tough time. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't want anybody watching this to be like, oh, I've been crying a lot lately, but maybe you're going through, a big move or something. That's stress. The difference between being unhappy and going through something stressful are so different, and being able to recognize that is just so, so important. The ladies out there that find themselves in that situation, you may have a guy that is just not right for you if you're finding yourself in that situation.
Yeah. And I think that's a good way to put it. Not right for you. I don't believe anyone is without, like really strong, wonderful qualities. Both of the men that I married and the men I've had relationships with they've all had amazing qualities. And I think that can be sometimes where it gets tricky, because, maybe you're finding yourself crying all the time, or maybe you're finding yourself feeling anxious and stressed all the time about what's going to happen. But the thing is that these are people who also have extremely amazing qualities. It's hard sometimes, it's confusing sometimes, because you can be crying, but then you can have these moments of really great, feelings, and everything goes really well. And you're like, I really love this aspect of our relationship, because these are people. Everyone's a person, and everyone is capable of really great things. Everyone is capable of really awful things. I'm going to say right now, I'm the reason my first marriage failed. I was the one that caused that to fail. And a lot of it was just my own insecurities, my own self-esteem problems, and just not really knowing who I was, and not really being able to fully address what I needed, or what was wrong with me, and what I could do better,
I'm really glad that you're answering this question and addressing it, because I think a lot of women that find fascinating womanhood say, they don't use this word, but in a roundabout way, they kind of say, I'm not worthy for that, or I'm not ready for that, or, I need to find a good guy first before I practice it. And I think that's what I love so much about fascinating womanhood, is that
you don't even have
to practice it. You actually practice it, or do, your whole life. And I didn't know that.
It's what you live. It's what you live. It's principles. Well, it's like saying, I'm going to be honest when I find a good person to be honest with. You're just an honest person,
But it takes a whole life to master it.
It's just who I am. It's become who I am. But I do it. I still do everything I do, no matter what I'm doing. I do it as a woman. I'm a woman, and I'm proud of it. And I think it's really sad that right now you can't be proud of being feminine, or you can't be proud of being masculine without
because I think a lot of women think, if you haven't found FW, then you can't have a successful marriage. Well, no, if you can still be a really feminine woman, like Gina is naturally a very feminine woman, and just unfortunately pick the wrong guy.
No, yeah, a lot of it's my personality. I kind of just love everybody, and
yeah, that's true.
I find the good in people, and I'm like, I just hold on to that.
She does.
So I love the good thing. I find good in everybody, and so I hold on to that, and it's really hard for me to let that go too. I honestly, I don't think I'll ever let any of it go. Like I still hold on to all the really beautiful, good things about people I've been in relationships with. But I think that also tends to attract people who go, I can.
Here's somebody I can use. Yeah. Well, and one thing I've noticed about you, Gina, it's a two-edged sword. You can't stand to lose anybody as a friend, even if they've really stabbed you in the back. I mean, you can't because you just
like, oh.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, everybody has bad parts to them. Now that you're engaged to a wonderful guy and we know him, he really is amazing. What do you take away from what you've learned from past relationships compared to now?
There's two really big things. Two really big ones. I think one of them is to pay attention to what people do and not what they say. Have bigger eyes than you do ears, because I tend to believe that everybody's being honest with me. And so when they say things, I go, oh, okay. If they say I'm sorry, I go, oh, okay. I forgive you then. Believe who they show you to be, not who they say they are. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's three things. Number two, take things slow. Get to know a person, take your time. There's no rush. Please don't rush into anything. But the third thing, and I think maybe the most important thing, is to be honest with yourself about who you are and what your baloney is in the relationship. Because I brought my own baggage to every place I went, and I needed to address that, and I needed to do things about it, and I needed to fix those things. No one can fix me. I can't fix them. You have to fix yourself. You not fix, I guess. You have to work on you. You have to be in touch with who you are and what your insecurities are bringing into the relationship, because sometimes if you have real major issues and you're bringing those to the table. For instance, I try really hard not to take like my, shall we say, PTSD, if you will, from past relationships into my current one. If I'm afraid of something because someone else did something, I try really hard not to take the things that really were hard for me in past relationships and think that Andy's going to do those too.
Also, he may have some PTSD from past things. And I think you've learned how to be more understanding of that. Mm-hmm. But compare the relationship you have now in a healthy relationship to the unhealthy. What's the difference? How does it manifest to you on a regular basis?
I feel like a healthy relationship brings out the best in me. I feel more relaxed. I feel more creative and capable of conquering my goals. And that's partly me. That's partly me working on me, but that's also partly I've gotten a lot of support. My fiance, Andy, has said as well that he feels that he is able to accomplish more things because I'm supportive of him. And I think that's a two-way thing though. We support each other and we are safe with each other. We trust each other. We bring out the best in each other. I could say, I think in my first marriage, the woman that he's with now, phenomenal woman. I think she brings out the best in him, and I believe that he's bringing out the best in her. And I think they're great people. And my son is 18 now. I don't really have a ton of contact with them per se, but they've done an amazing job being dad and bonus mom. And I feel like we've had a really, really great, thing where I feel like they were each other's best matches. And I have found my best match. I have found someone that brings out the best in me.
One thing that I think is really important to highlight about what you just said is that someone who's truly improving, such as yourself, takes that unhealthy relationship and not only learns from it, like you're saying, and moves on, but you actually are growing, and you have proof that you're growing because you chose someone who is different than that last person, and you recognize those things and you appreciate those things. Because the guy that I was with that was really unhealthy, I think I needed that to see what I see in my husband now. I'm grateful that I went through that in a way. In some ways, it's like a big wound, but in other ways, I'm grateful that I had him, because I don't know that I would have seen my stubbornness, would have seen the good in my husband if I hadn't gone through that. And I think you have grown so much, in that you said, after a failed relationship, you said, I'm gonna be attracted, not consciously, but you kind of said to yourself, I'm gonna be attracted to somebody that's not like that and that's like this.
And also letting go of ego. You can't let your ego, say, well, but I wanted to make this work. I wanted to make this person love me, and I wanted
yeah.
I didn't want to be divorced a second time. What does this look like? And oh, I'm getting married a third time or whatever. And you have to let all that ego go, because you can't bring that into the new relationship. You can't bring that ego or that fear of what that means about you into the new relationship. But yeah, I think you have to really recognize what didn't work and sort that out. Figure out where your part in that was. Doesn't matter at all. You can sit there and say, well, this person this and this person that. The bottom line is I agreed to all of it.
Right.
So that's me. That's on me. I have to take responsibility for my side of all of it. I have to take responsibility for my fears and anxieties getting the better of me. I have to take responsibility for all the things that I did that ended up adding to the problems.
Let's bring up your kids. You have 3. One of them, like you said, is older. How much did your kids enter into your anxiety about other relationships?
Yeah, what advice do you have for moms out there that have been divorced?
Can be really stressful because you worry about what's happening when they're not with you. You worry about who else are they being exposed to or what's going on, and you miss them. And I'll never get over it. I'll never get over the fact that I didn't get to watch Charlie with his dad. My son Charlie is the 18-year-old. I didn't get to see them interacting a lot, and that still makes me kind of sad. They have things about their relationship that I don't know. I remember Charlie really enjoys Doctor Who. And I was going to take Charlie to go meet David Tennant. We were very excited about this, and I told his dad, hey, is it all right if I pick him up to go take him to this Comic-Con, and we're going to meet David Tennant? And he's like, who's David Tennant? And I was like, how do you not know?
That's what I had to say.
Yeah, I was like, this is a huge thing in Charlie's life is Doctor Who and David Tennant. He goes, oh yeah, I think I remember that he liked Doctor Who. And I was like, that made me realize that we have very different experiences.
Yeah.
and that's a hard thing. But you know what? I would part of the whole thing. It's part of the package. With my other 2 kids, I know at least I have some comfort knowing that they're having a lot of fun, that they enjoy going to their dads. They're always very excited to go there, and so there's comfort there. The only thing you can really do is just go, okay, I can't do anything about what's going on over there. I can take comfort in knowing that for me, and and I can't tell you what's right for everybody, but for me, it was the right decision to get divorced. And I can say, okay, I have to take the good with the bad. I have to take the bad with the good. Just do the best I can on my end of things to keep communication open with my kids. And this is true with just parenting in general. I actually given my daughter we've decided on a safe word. If she says the safe word, she's going to tell me about something that maybe she's embarrassed about or sad about, or maybe she is afraid that I'm going to get mad about. But if she uses the safe word, I know she feels bad. I will listen and I will not get mad. There might be consequences, but I won't get mad. So we're keeping this very open communication. I try to let her know I'm there and I'm on her side. And if anything's bothering her, I'll be there. And my 4-year-old's a little too young to really have any issues at this point, but I think honestly the only thing you can do is just the best you can on your end of things to have stability, whether you're single, whether you remarry, whether you're in relationships, just to be stable and consistent and to keep communication open with your children.
If you're in a toxic or unhealthy, and they're not the same, I'm saying toxic is more severe than unhealthy. If you're in a toxic, unhealthy, abusive relationship, you need to be aware and learn when that relationship is toxic and what you need to do to get out of it. You got to be careful because people who don't know you online that give advice don't have the whole picture. And so you need to learn about this yourself and know when to get out, particularly if you're children, if you're worried about your kids. Some women, a lot of women, don't have any good examples of a healthy relationship. If you don't, that can be a problem because you don't know what healthy looks like. If you've never experienced, if your parents didn't have a healthy one. I know people who never known anybody in their family that wasn't incarcerated. So, I mean, there's some unhealthy things out there. So you can look here. There's a lot of good examples here of healthy relationships. You can look online. I occasionally see a story in the news about a couple that's like in their 90s and they die within hours of each other, and they used to hold hands eating breakfast together their whole life. I mean, there's people actually like that.
And you can find people. Andy works directly with the father of the guy I work with. So they're father and son, they work there together. Andy sees this man who has raised 4 children, 4 amazing, wonderful children who are healthy adults, and have really great relationships. And so he looks at him and he sees that he and his wife are still married, still happy. They still go on trips together, just the 2 of them. And, he goes, okay, there's a good relationship. So then he goes to that person for good advice. And you'll find examples everywhere of people who are living good relationships. Now, typically those people aren't, broadcasting it all over.
Yeah, they don't because it's intensely personal.
You have to, you really have to like look for them and get to know them, get to know people that you respect, get to know people that you admire, and watch what they do and watch their relationships.
For those of you out there who have been divorced or are not married yet, either one, but especially those who have been divorced, some are worried that they will marry poorly again. Bob always says, if you don't figure out what your part in it is and why you were attracted to husband A, you may marry the same type of person again. You're trying to figure out. If you figure out what your part in it was and why you were attracted to that, you can do something about that. And you don't have to go into these and marry the same type of person. And when you understand this and make changes, you can have an amazing lifelong love affair with a really great guy. I know some really great men. I've got 2 really great brothers. And so for those women who haven't known a really good man, there's a lot of them. There really are a lot of them. You might have to look a little bit because there's some real bombs.
And they take a while to get to know. When I met Andy, I knew he was a nice person, but I had no idea. He doesn't just spill his guts about who he is immediately. You kind of have to figure him out little by little. And I'm still finding out things that I kind of go, you never told me that. And not that it's been like forever, but he doesn't let people in immediately.
A lot of men are like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and I had no idea because he doesn't go around bragging about it. He doesn't, and maybe a lot of people don't know or don't understand that about him. When he was married before and when he was going through his divorce, there was a lot of stuff being, his ex was saying a lot of really awful things, and he wasn't bothered because he's like, I know who I am. And the people who know me know who I am. Everybody seems to respect him. The people that he lets in are very few. A lot of them are the Marines that he served with. Almost every weekend, he's running around doing stuff for other people. And that's not something he talks about. And he doesn't talk about all the things that I find out from his friends. He's a very humble person.
Well, if he did that, it would be a bit of a warning flag. So that's...
Yeah, I feel like a good video for everyone out there to watch that goes along with this one is the rat filter video. Because it basically is a video that just goes through like warning signs of like maybe a guy that might not be the best for you or might not be in the best place to be in a relationship. So that'd be a good one.
I'm sure in the rat filter you discuss things about like if they said they're like me, monster.
That's a really great way. I don't think we said it that way. That actually could cover probably 25 minutes of the video.
That's a perfect imitation. Don't lie.
Yeah, we did discuss narcissistic behavior and selfish behavior. Yes.
Another interesting narcissistic behavior is the love bombing. Have you heard of that?
No, I have not heard of that. Okay, I'm the one that doesn't know. Tell me.
I'll just talk about it. A common, very almost 100% of the time, I would say, thing that narcissists do is they love bomb you. They meet you and they're just sitting there, they're blown away by how amazing you are, and they tell you, they just like, and that's one of the things that draws a lot of people in is you are the best thing that's ever happened in the entire world. And it's usually early on. It's usually like they meet you and they're like, and they flatter you with these like amazing, like they are real things. Like, they'll say some real things, but they
feels like too much.
You barely know me, but you're like, you are amazing. And they typically are talking marriage early on. They're typically like, just like, oh my gosh, you're the most amazing thing. And what happens is that, like a person, falls for it. They go, oh yes, I am very special, right? And then they get involved, and then they start getting you to share all of your things, and they are very understanding, very caring, very loving. And then every single one of those things that you shared with them, they turn it around and they use it against you when they're upset. And sometimes they're upset for really stupid things. That's one of those narcissistic kind of red flags, the love bombing.
I recognize the behavior. I didn't know it was called that, but thank you for explaining that. I know what that is.
And then they often use triangulation early. Triangulation is getting you to be jealous of somebody else, whether it's an ex. Oh yeah, I was getting hit on by these girls, but you're the only one for me. They'll do things like that where you're like, what? You were getting hit on? Who was hitting on you? Oh, just that hot chick over there. That was a perfect imitation as well.
That an exact footage of it, actually. This has been really great. Gina, thank you so much for being here to talk to us. I think, the whole point of us wanting to do this today is for the women out there that have had past relationships, or maybe they haven't had anything really healthy and they just are worried that fascinating womanhood is something that doesn't apply to them. And I think we just hope that this is a great message out there for all those ladies that have gone through this, and, that there's hope, and that you can absolutely find someone. And like you said, work on yourself. I think that was the main reason why we wanted to do this, and to have somebody that represents fascinating womanhood so well talk to us about it, because that to me is just so, so valuable. So thank you so much for being here and being able to share some of your stories. And Mom, thank you for all of your advice, as always. If you have any stories that you want to share with us, definitely comment down below. We would love to hear from you. We try to answer almost every single comment if we can. So share your stories or any other questions that you have for us. We would love to hear from you. We are here every single week, so don't forget to check back with us. I'm also attaching some links at the bottom of the video for all the places you can find us on social media. We have some really great places that you can connect with other women. Facebook is one of them. We have a really great Facebook forum that is a great place to ask questions and get advice. And I'm also including a link for Dixie's book and workbooks down below. So don't forget to check those out, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.